Hey everyone, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. This is the week ending the week of Friday, October 1st, 2021. We have several films to talk about this week. It's very, very cool. I'm excited to talk about all three films. The funny thing is, a couple of these movies are very, very good. Eric Holmes might one of these actually be a top 5 or a top 10 for you? A little tease on that?
Oh, yes.
Possibly.
Yes. Most definitely.
And Bruce, do you think you might have one of out of these three movies? May one of these actually arrive in your top 10 at the end of the year? Do they have? Does maybe one of these?
Possible. I threw them into my top 25. I throw things in there, which is up to about 30 something, and then I'll start weeding it down at the end of the year. So
yes, and the movie, without giving anything away, the movie that both Eric Holmes and Bruce Purkey are really raving about, and they know where I'm going to go with this joke because I'm a corny old man. They both really love this movie called American Night. American Night is one of the movies we'll be covering. No laughter here, just silence, dead silence. No.
I don't even know what movie you're talking about.
Okay. Bruce Purkey just brought out a gun. It's a 6-shooter. Okay, is this an extra? Look, he's pointing it at the camera. Is this an extra? Did you get that from Red Dead Redemption? Was that an extra gift that you got, or is that
it's some replica, some Colt 45 replica?
Okay,
very heavy though. It's pure metal.
Okay, there's a reason why Bruce is holding a gun. Okay, and it's not because he's found. It's because one of the other movies, along with American Night, and then Eric Holmes is an air gun with me. Eric Holmes, he's called this week Titane White because Titane is one of the movies we're covering this week. The other movie, the aforementioned movie American Night, we're also covering, and then this movie per Bruce Purkey's just whatever gun he was holding, Colt, whatever. I'm not very good with guns. Old Henry. We're covering a Western called Old Henry. So these are the three big movies we're covering this week. You know, on every week, Bruce Purkey actually gives us a skeleton and outline of things we need to discuss. I have here intro. I wanted to really be spontaneous and actually think of really interesting things to say for the intro to this latest Find Your Film episode. But I realized I looked at my crypto numbers. They're down dramatically. So my brain is empty. It is draining out of my energy is draining out of my body. Okay. So Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey, do you have anything interesting to say while I am drowning here in Bitcoin madness? Anything about cinema, your last week, anything you want to plug before we dive into these movies?
I don't think so.
These are great thinkers we have here. That's Eric Holmes. That's his vote. Well, I'm going to take Eric Holmes to task. By the way, about American Night. There's a moment I can't wait to talk to Eric Holmes about. And you know, Eric Holmes, you might actually have a friend in Anderson Cowan. He actually defended you in an interesting way. So we're going to get to that in a second. Bruce Purkey, anything else? Anything in your noggin? In the last week,
I'm working on a mysterious possible gift package that might be coming soon. I haven't quite decided if I can make it happen, but if I can, I will. I also spent at least an hour this week trying to narrow down the exact location where they filmed the cabin from Old Henry, and right. I've got it within about a 10-mile radius.
10. Oh, very good. Within a 10. How the heck are you doing that, Bruce Purkey? Maybe he might be obsessed with this movie called Old Henry. Very excited about that. I was going to say something very interesting, but then that interesting thought just escaped me. There's one movie out of these three that I wish we could talk about this movie and dive deep into it for about 2 hours. Bruce Purkey, is there any chance one day me, you, and Eric will do a 2-hour deep dive on American Night?
we could do a watch along on that one. That would be that could. If I could go,
I'm busy that day.
You're busy that day.
You need to be really, really drunk, though. You have to help me out there.
I'll start now.
Okay.
Or we all have to get naked and start painting ourselves.
I'm in.
Okay. Also covered in this, Bruce will be talking about the Netflix series, which is, it's really taken the world by storm. It's Squid Game. Also, Eric Holmes he loves being anything with cliches. Eric Holmes is all about. He's going to cover this thing called Attack of the Hollywood Clichés. Maybe he'll be attacking himself some cliches in this episode. Last but not least, we're going to get into Bruce Purkey's What's in the Box pick, which is from our buddy Jeff Basson, and it's this movie called Tropical Malady. Wow, that sounds interesting. What do you think of the Tropical Malady moniker? Is that an interesting title, or do you think they could have come up with a better name than Tropical Malady?
I suspect it's a translation because I think this is a Thai movie, if I remember correctly. I should have dug up exactly. I think it's Thai. So it's probably a translation of something, and it probably doesn't translate correctly to American English, which is already a mess anyway. So yeah. It was hard to find too.
Oh no! How did you find it? Or did you just download it on digital? Did you hunt it on YouTube? What did you do? What was the secret for this?
Look it up. It's not rentable. I couldn't find anywhere to rent it or anywhere.
Thank you, Jeff Basson. Thank you for that. Then what did you do? What did you just piece it together?
There are a couple of Thai sites that looks like they put it onto YouTube, squished, and where you have to use the weird option where it automatically translates it for you. So my version of watching this might be a little bit skewed. So I apologize if I didn't get the full impact of that movie. So
that is amazing. Okay, you know what? Let's first get into our featured reviews. Let's start off with this Western. Bruce and Eric, just right off the top of your head, can you name, since we talk about movies that we love, right off the top of your head, can you name one of your all-time favorite Westerns? Just Rorschach test. Just for me, I'm going to say right now, the first movie that comes out of my head, I'm going to say it. It's Once Upon a Time in the West. That's what my pick. There's actually, you know what? I'm going to rejig that. It's actually Duck You Sucker. I like Duck You Sucker a lot better. Eric and Bruce.
We've mentioned it a couple of times, but The Great Silence is really good, and
The Great
Cemetery Without Crosses. Like I saw that the first time this year, and that hopped right up there. As far as like westerns,
Eric Holmes was mentioning spaghetti westerns, very good spaghetti westerns. He got us into spaghettis, and then Eric and I during one week we talked about The Great Silence as well, and Eric also covered it in a previous episode, Cemetery Without Crosses. Sorry, Eric, go ahead. Yeah,
but as far as westerns, I really like The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. That's it's definitely a slow burn, but it's just one of those movies. Like, it's one of my comfort movies. I can always put it in and just be like, and then of course A Wild Bunch, because that movie's just badass.
Very good choices. Also I guess Eric Holmes likes seeing Casey Affleck out by the wheat fields or something like that. That's a very interesting. Yes. Oh, what?
Kirk Douglas and Posse. That was a really good one too.
Yeah, you're a huge Western guy. Bruce, are you a Western guy like me and Eric? Are you? Is this a Western? Is this a genre that you need to be more exposed to?
I'm probably sat right in the middle. I would have said Once Upon a Time in the West too, probably for like revisionist artsy Westerns. I really like Dead Man. Recently, I really enjoyed Slow West.
Yes,
Slow West is really good.
Very good. Michael Fassbender is in that one. Very, very good movie.
Yeah, those are all really good movies. I don't know. Does Treasure and Sierra Madre count as a Western?
I would say it has its moments. Yeah,
it has cowboy hats and horses. I guess that's all.
Well, I don't know. For Old Henry, I don't know if it's a revisionist Western. It's okay. The good thing about it is it's led by Tim Blake Nelson. We all know him from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He was also. We know him as in Westerns because he opened up the anthology, Coen Brothers anthology movie, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Here, he's a titular character, a widowed farmer living out in the middle of nowhere.
Why'd you settle here? Up at dawn, working the crops, rain or shine.
You'll discover there's worse arrangements.
Paul's a good man, Wyatt.
I ain't him.
Stop fretting about it.
You know I saw what's in the back of that closet.
I've done things I wish I could take back. I best go look for the rider.
Is he alive?
Barely.
What do you think happened? Some kind of shootout?
Stay here and keep an eye on him.
Who the hell are you? My pa found you. Well, go fetch him. Won't you put my gun in my satchel? I don't know what you're talking about. You gotta think long and hard on what you got yourself into.
Funny, I was about to tell you the same thing.
Riders. There gonna be 3 of them.
I'm Sheriff Sam Ketchum. We've been scouting for a man on the run. He's dangerous.
They ain't lawmen. They bank robbers.
Your last name McCarty?
That's right.
First name?
Henry.
Why they didn't shoot you dead, I don't know.
I got this crazy idea. There might be more to Old Henry than meets the eye.
Some shaky old farmer?
He didn't hold that pistol like any farmer I've ever seen.
Listen to me. What's going to happen will happen quick.
You got a lot of fight for a farmer.
You have no idea the hailstorm you fixing to let loose.
Consider me properly warned. Where'd you come from?
Every place on earth but this.
Who are you, Paul?
Obviously, this middle of nowhere, Bruce Purkey is actually tracking down exactly where this middle of nowhere is. It's this interesting house, and he's a farmer. He has a kid who maybe the kid might be about 16 or 17. The kid is ready to move out of the farm and actually go out to the frontier towns and explore his own world. He's been sheltered by his widowed dad for so many years, and he's sick of it. But old Henry, one of these days, he's out of the horse, and he sees an injured, mysterious man. He's bloodied, wounded, might be dying, and near him is a satchel of cash. So what old Henry does, he decides to bring the stranger home along, and he hides that satchel of cash, and he tries to nurse this man to health. Eric Holmes, do you believe no good deed goes unpunished? Do you believe in that phrase, or do you think it's always good to do good deeds?
I think many bad deeds go unpunished.
Oh, many bad deeds. Very interesting. Well, this is a good deed that, well, I don't know. It would sometimes being a good Samaritan, it could lead you to different outcomes. And this outcome, without giving too much away, is old Henry, by doing this good deed and helping nursing, he's trying to nurse this guy back to health. This mysterious strangers, I guess you mentioned posse. Maybe there is a criminal element led by Stephen Dorff who are out to hunt him down, grab the cash, and they'll do whatever it takes to get this man, either eliminate this wounded man, and then maybe kill anyone who he crosses paths with. That is the ultimate plot summary of Old Henry. Very lean and mean, very nothing fancy about it. But what's interesting is Eric Holmes was the first one out of our three to actually watch this. Eric Holmes, tell our listeners what your really strong reaction to Old Henry was, and why did you feel this so strongly about this Western?
Well, this movie's a real meat and potatoes kind of thing. It's one of those type of movies that similar to The Djinn. That's the first one that comes to mind, where it's just the thing, and it focuses on being the best version of that thing. In this case, a Western. It just focuses on its basic story, and focuses on the characters, and sets up, well, first of all, Steve Dorff is leading the posse that comes to Old Henry's ranch, house, farm, whatever you want to call it. And they're looking for that guy that Old Henry found laying on the ground with a bunch of money. Yeah. This is I don't know, my brain just went dead.
Well, this movie's 99 minutes. Your brain just went dead. All I know is
the thing about this movie is it just did that thing where it was really focused on the simple story it was trying to tell. It wasn't trying to get too clever with anything. It wasn't, and at the same time, it wasn't dull. It kept ramping up the suspense. The longer this movie went on, the more I was loving it. And by the time it finished, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be in my top 5 of the year, easy.
Top 5 of the year because you love Western so much, or top 5 is just because like you're a storytelling guy? This just, like you said, because of the execution of the story.
Well, it was good to see a Western because we don't get many of them. And then the ones we do get, sometimes they're pretty good. Sometimes they're okay. We just, Westerns kind of, they're not dead, but they, certainly don't make very many of them. And when they make them and they're as good as this one, I'm just like, holy fucking shit. as soon as it was over, I'm like, well, I got to make sure Bruce and Greg saw that so I can watch it again, because we'll have so many views that we can do. And I had to go back and watch it a second time. And it was just it's kind of like one of those like I said about Assassination and Jesse James is one of the first of all, this isn't like Assassination and Jesse James.
Yeah.
And the pacing.
Yeah, it's not sprawling.
Yeah, this is probably somewhere, I wasn't gonna say it was closer to Young Guns, but Young Guns is more like this one gets action heavy towards the end. It's somewhere in between there, like in between Young, not quite as over the top as Young Guns, and not quite as slow as Assassination of Jesse James. It's just right in that sweet spot, right in the middle. Gives you just enough character and just enough action, and it gave Steven Dorff a role that I fucking love. And I've been waiting for Steven Dorff to be this good. I knew he could be. It's just like, so there are certain actors that like they just don't get that role. And Steven Dorff finally got that role. I'm so happy for him, and I was so glad to see him in this. And then, of course, Sam Blake Nelson's awesome. Trace Adkins, everyone in this is awesome. Trace Adkins, like I'm not familiar with him as an actor. I know he's a singer, but I'm not familiar with him as an actor. But he played the John Goodman role pretty well in this, I think.
Yeah, Trace Adkins plays the brother-in-law of Old Henry. And what's funny about Trace Adkins, he's a very physically imposing figure in this movie. Though he is still physically imposing and he's a tough guy, it's a different type of role for Trace Adkins. All I remember Trace Adkins for is for his work in The Lincoln Lawyer. And like you said, Eric, he is also a singer-musician as well. Now, Bruce, let's get to you. What did you think of Old Henry? Did you feel that it was by the way, this movie is written and directed by Pozzi Ponzaroli, and very interesting filmmaker. I interviewed him earlier in the week. And yeah, did this movie really hit high for you?
Yeah, this movie did hit very high for me. We're talking a lot about the story and being very meat potatoes and lean and all these things. I think this is like a textbook. This could literally be taught in classes on how to create a narrative very effectively, mostly visually, not a lot of exposition. On some, there's a little bit, but I could see this being done in a totally opposite way and being just clunky. But instead, I mean, for example, we talked about the beginning of it. I think about it, how it just starts and it, scans across the grave of the dead mom and wife. You see the father and the son for a little bit, and then you see just a horse appear, a riderless horse appear at the top of the hill right next to their house. They walk up to the horse, there's blood on the saddle. Like, that's how you tell something has happened. There's blood on the saddle. Another little simple spots in here. I mean, I always think about, I don't know where I heard this. This is kind of an old chestnut, but there's only two stories, right? You've probably heard this before too. There's two stories. A stranger rides into town, a stranger rides out of town. Every other thing is just embellishment. This literally has a stranger ride into town. That's the beginning of the story. So one other point early on, you talk about him finding the satchel, but little touches that show how awesome and how effectively this is written. Because he gets the guy, he puts the mud, the mud, I forget what they call that, where they kind of cover up the wound with some mud to kind of hold it in and hold the blood in. And, he kind of gets him going on the horse, and he's about to leave, and he sees the satchel of money. And he doesn't just take it and go. He looks at it for a second, and he says, nope. And he walks away from it. And then it's like, you just told us without having to tell us, this is the crucial, pivotal moment in the story. The minute he goes back from that note, everything is in play. He can't get away from it. This is a great, great movie. I can't imagine Western or non-Western fans wouldn't enjoy this movie. It's just awesome storytelling.
Is another reason why it's awesome storytelling. Going back to what Eric was saying, is I think that there is some style to it, but there is a lack of embellishment. Eric mentioned Steven Dorff's character. Steven Dorff's character, he's a bad guy. There's no Tolstoy type of characterizations with him. He's bad. He's mean. He wants to kill people. He wants the money. Do you like the fact that these characters were pretty much lean? Even the Old Henry's a little bit layered. Did you like the leanness of this narrative?
Yeah, because I think that fits, and visually too. This isn't like a flashy, super stylized looking movie either. It fits the character of the story and the characters themselves, right? This is very straightforward. And when you cross the line of not being straightforward in this world, it's dangerous. And people cross that line in the story. But that being said, Old Henry does some interesting mind tricks, but they show us those in really smart ways too. And I'm not going to talk about it, but it'll be certain things like where he'll place something on a table near somebody on purpose. And you're like, why is he doing that? That's so dumb. And it's like, no, he's doing it on purpose.
Right. Whenever there is any kind of dialogue in Old Henry, there is a reason why it's there. Bruce was mentioning I don't know if it's a dinner sequence, it's a meal sequence between him and the stranger. And it's just a lesser filmmaker, a lesser film, this thing would have just been a horrible exposition dump. But there are a million things that are going on within this conversation. There's memories between these two people. It's like, what is it? The whole Hitchcock thing about the ticking time bomb, right? In the under, yeah. So, yeah, no, like Eric was saying, it's a suspenser. There is an interesting twist that we're not going to give away, but the twist is not a selling point for Old Henry. This is just a really great Western. Just know that it's going to take you in different directions. Very interesting. High marks for all of us. I love this film as well. Another, like Eric was saying, great role for Stephen Dorff, great role for Tim Blake Nelson. Also, I was telling you guys, I was a little bit wistful because I was thinking about all of the lead roles that Tim Blake Nelson should have had within the last 20 years. He's had a great character actor career. Were you surprised at how good he was as a leading man regarding Old Henry, or was this one of these things like, oh, it's a long time coming?
I definitely wasn't surprised. I was happy to see it for sure, especially when you see him in this. I mean, it's one of those parts is like there's no one else that can play that part. There's very few parts like that, but this one's that one for him. And his eyeball acting is on point with his dead eye. He's just like
his eyeball acting is very good too.
I ain't seen no one come on down here, but sure as I do, I let you know.
I just dawned on me when you asked that question. I never thought about it just now, but I think one of the reasons he works so perfectly for this, because his character in this movie is, in his own life, he is kind of a character actor or a side character in his own life, right? He isn't someone who shines out. By having the actor be that kind of person, when he twists it, and all of a sudden you see that, oh, he is more than we think he is, it works even better by having him as the actor in that role. Like if you had put, I don't know, Brad Pitt in this role, or pick another, really main lead actor,
Matt Damon.
This wouldn't work near as well, because the whole point is he isn't that kind of character in the life he lives.
He's also kind of got that sort of like with this, just the way he carries himself. He's got like a lot more vulnerability. But then you see him kind of come out of that sometimes, and you can see that I ain't going to want to tell you one more time. I already told you once, But when he gets serious, you know that he means business. But then he seems like a pushover a lot of the time. But he is not.
I wrote this quote down right to that. At one point, he says to somebody, "You got the wrong pig by the ear." And I was like, "That's awesome."
Yeah, I like when Stephen Dorff's character asks Old Henry, "Where are you from?" And Henry just immediately says, "Everywhere but here," meaning don't F with him. He is a stranger. He's a stranger in a strange land, and you don't want to mess with Old Henry. Again, possibly a top 5 for Eric Holmes. Bruce and I both really love it. Old Henry, the only bad thing, it's not going to be on video on demand. It's not going to be streaming. This is a theatrical release on Friday, October 1st. Hopefully it's playing. Yes, Eric.
I will be going to the theater to watch this.
Oh, very cool. This is worth watching in the theaters. Oh, let's not forget.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the philosophical stuff, the lean narrative, and the performances. Yes, this has shootouts. So if you're in it for some gunplay.
Some really good ones too. Like,
yeah.
This shit gets brutal.
Right. Oh, very, very quickly. I haven't put it up on our Cinematics Patreon yet. Both Bruce and Eric actually got to listen to my full interview. The director, he talks about how he changed the ending of the film. And if you see the ending of this movie, is very memorable, but it would have been interesting to see what he would have done with that separate ending. And so you can listen to that down the line for our Patreon members. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, which I may very well not, but I do seem to recall that when you asked them about that, they were shooting, and pretty much everything that's at the end is almost everything they shot, because they were just on a time crunch, which is even more impressive that this movie is as good as it is.
I can't believe they were able to get, without giving too much away, all of those shots in, right, Bruce? All of those shots in within, like you said, Eric, within several hours. Sun was going down. They were going to lose a light, and they're going to lose that location. Amazing. Okay. Speaking of amazing, so that is Old Henry, Friday, October 1st. If it's playing in the theaters, Eric Holmes will see it now. Another movie, speaking of amazing, Titane also opens in theaters Friday, October 1st. Little first world problems that I'm going to complain. Eric and Bruce rarely ever complain, but I'm not going to raise a hissy fit. I'm just going to say this. all three of us received the screening link for only 24 hours. So as soon as it popped in our respective email, we had 24 hours to watch Titane. And we were all under the gun. Were you guys able to see it within that 24 hours? Were you going on hour 22 and you needed to see it, or did you guys see it immediately?
Well, when I got home from work, I was kind of planning to see it anyway, or watch something anyway. So that it was easy for me, but that's only because it just happened to, the timing fell pretty perfect on my end.
Yeah, Bruce, let me guess. You watched it 10 seconds after you got the email? Is that what you did? Did you watch it while the email was coming?
I was at work.
Oh
and I worked till nearly 11 o'clock at night. So I went home, I watched an hour of it, went to bed at midnight, got up at 5:30, finished it.
Oh my God.
Before we had to drive to Nashville. So I'm like, I'm not missing out on this movie because I've been hearing about this movie for a while. So
Bruce, I'm going to hand this to you because you actually, out of all three of us, you were the one who actually requested that we actually flag Titane down, written and directed by Julia. I'm messing up her name, Ducerneau. She's best known for her 2016 film Raw. I look at the plot summary. It's not giving any plot summary away. So I want to throw this to you, Bruce. What can we say about this movie plot-wise?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, what the plot summary says something really weird, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it just says a metal highly resistant to heat and corrosion. It's just defining Titane with
is that what it says?
strength alloys often used in medical prosthesis due to its pronounced biocompatibility. I think I'm going to just start off with this. The movie starts with the main character in Titane. I would say it starts off with the main character, and she is essentially a child in the beginning. Okay. What is her name? Her name is Alexia.
Yeah.
Alexia. And that's played by Agatha Roussel. And I'm messing up her name. She is fantastic. By the way, she's fantastic in this movie. Her first film ever. I can't believe she knocked this one on the park. But it doesn't start with her. It starts with a younger version of herself, younger Alexia. She's in the backseat of the car with her father. They're driving. She is being a little bit obstinate, and he's not being very loving to his daughter. They have a car accident, goes into a surgery. What happens is Alexia, as a child, she is affixed in her head. She is now living the rest of her life with a metal plate in her head. There is a fusion between humanity and steel. And as she grows up, then it cuts to her in present day, where we realize Alexia is sorry about that text. That was a text from Anderson Cowan saying thank you to me. We're going to mention Anderson Cowan in a second later in our review of American Night. I think Eric Holmes is going to really like that part. But anyways, Alexia is now, it cuts to her in present day where she's dancing in this sort of car exhibition thing. And she's dancing provocatively with other women. And it's really grabs your attention. But that's one part of the story, and you think it's gonna be one thing, and it gets to be Alexia gets to be there's a lot of violence in the first half, and in the second half, we're introduced to another character named Vincent, played by Vincent Linden. Vincent, his son has been missing for years, and he is a lonely firefighter who, more than anything, understandably wants his son back. He cannot let go of the fact that his son might be permanently missing, might have passed away years ago. Ultimately, the lives of Vincent and Alexia, they cross paths in the middle of the movie. And what starts off as a very violent exercise in cinema, and it's stomach churning to the point, it becomes something else when these two strangers, their lives intersect. And I think that's as far as I want to take it. Bruce and Eric, if you want to take it further, you can. You have the permission, but I want what else did I not embellish upon or talk about that should be mentioned regarding plot synop?
I don't think I would bring anything else up in the plot synopsis. I think that really gives people a good idea, especially the idea to me that this is kind of inverted from what you think the normal like pacing or path would be. You'd expect the first half of a movie to be a little more, slower and build up to a very ferocious climax. This does the exact opposite. So I bet you some people will feel let down by that. This is this is an unusual movie. Movie Bears podcast, William Linda saw this at Fantastic Fest the same day I think we were watching the screener. And he had said he loved this movie, but he didn't know who to recommend it to. And all I could come up with is a lot of people, first of all, will not like this movie. We can probably all agree to that. This is not for your...
And why, you think? Because of the excess, the violence,
and also narratively, it's quite unusual, and it could be very off-putting to people. Both of our lead characters, I guess you could say there's two lead characters. She's the main lead, but both of the lead characters have a lot of personality traits or activities that could be highly frowned upon and people might just check out, not be connected to them. I would say that if I was going to suggest it to anybody, it would be people who liked or were interested in the French Extremity series of films, for sure. I had mentioned to William Lindis that if people who really enjoyed Climax last year or the year before by Noé would probably like this. People who hated it would probably hate this. Whether you like it or hate it, though, I think anyone would be able to recognize that the performance by Agathe Roussel is amazing, visceral, physically brutal. I think, and his performance, what's the guy? Vincent Lindon. He's amazing too.
They're not going to get it, but they both deserve Oscar nominations for their work in this movie. It's very intense. The lengths they go to this movie. Alexia, what's so funny is there's not a lot of exposition dumps with her. It's really all about, Eric was mentioning Tim Blake Nelson's eyes. It's all about her eyes and her body language in this movie as well, which is very raw and real. This is a very interesting movie. Also, Garance Marillier, she was the lead in Raw. She has a small role in this one as well. So there's a little bit of a continuation there. And yeah, Eric Holmes, Titane, your thoughts on the movie?
This feels like, watching Raw seemed kind of like the director working up to this. Like this, like if you've seen Raw, this is the next natural progression, and I think this is definitely a lot better because this kind of plays like narratively it's confusing, but I think you have to watch this not as a narrative story, but like it's metaphor, like her crashing the car. And it might not be about this, but this is what I got. There's sexual frustration, gender frustration with the main character, and her trying to hide it, and her surrogate father kind of looking the other way. And like I think he kind of knows what's up, but he just kind of puts on airs. And so it's like this relationship dynamic with them. But the stuff that's happening isn't the stuff that's important. It's kind of the stuff that happens in the narrative is kind of like a proxy for something else that's going on internally. And
a good read.
I didn't really pick up on it at first. I just thought it was some weird thing where some chick bangs a car. And that's kind of how it was sold. But this is a lot better than that. And I think he goes a lot deeper. And it's also like one of those movies, like, I'll be honest, a lot of this movie went right over my head, but the stuff I did pick up on, we've talked about Lose a Flower of Evil being so dense that you watch it and you start picking up. This is another one of those type of movies that you can watch it and dismiss as pretentious bullshit, and maybe you're right. You could dismiss it as just being violent for violence sake or weird for weird sake. Maybe you're right, but I got enough out of this and picked up enough clues as to what I think it might be going for that I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt and kind of go back and kind of dissect it a little more and kind of really grasp what it is that their filmmaker is trying to say. And that ending was just heartbreaking. Yep. As fucking weird as it was, I just got in that moment emotionally. I was like, oh, that's emotional powerhouse ending. And I think you were talking about dissecting, Eric. I think that's one. Bruce, do you agree with that's probably one of the great things about this movie? You can have so many different interpretations about what this movie is about. It could be like Eric was saying, that maybe by proxy it might be just a fever dream of the original character, and maybe it could be an allegory for something else, or you could look at everything literally. You could do that. But there are so many different reads you can have for Titane. I just thought this movie was very rich. I don't know if I would recommend it to everyone, just people who really want to push their own limits when it comes to cinema watching. If you're really into an overall experience, whether you love it or not, I think Titane is highly recommended. The only caveat I have for this is there is some very shocking, violent moments where in the beginning, when there's a moment where it's a meet and greet moment. I'm going to just say a meet and greet moment that I'm just watching. I think it's going to go one way and I get scared, and then I get terrified because it goes a completely different way, and it just grossed me out. Oh my God. Bruce, you were going to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, I totally agree with Eric. I think there's a ton of readings here. There definitely is a lot of stuff going on about gender fluidity, about family, about accepting people, about, you know, broken people finding their families. There's a lot of stuff about that in here. And I think it can hit pretty emotionally deep. But I also absolutely agree with you on the very guarded recommendation to people, because I mean, we, at least Eric and I, and you to some degree too, and we watch horror movies and see some pretty violent stuff and don't get that freaked out by it. This is one of those movies that I feel like, first of all, I love this director's, watch her for sure. You feel this movie. I feel like this movie just, it like, you know how you see some movies and you might emotionally or intellectually, it kind of gets you. This feels like you physically feel it. Like you talked about the scene that got you. To me, there's a scene in a bathroom where she's just trying to change her identity. I'm not going to say how she does that.
Yeah.
And you're just cringing at what's going to happen. I mean, you feel the intensity of what's about to happen. And when it happens,
they telegraph that too. So it's like, you know, it's coming. It's like,
but there's just scenes in here where she's like just scratching herself. And it's just like, oh my God. I don't know how to describe it. And that was in the first movie too. In Raw, there was some scenes like that too. She has something that's really, I don't know how to describe it, but she has something very special about the way that she puts stuff right in your face in a way that you can't avoid it.
She also started both movies with a car crash, like someone causing a car crash, like on purpose.
That's true.
And then, yeah, the scratching thing, like it's kind of like but we're doing the Leos Carax thing, and notice like all the little things that kind of seem to pop up in all his movies. And she's just got the two that I've seen, but there's definitely some similarities. That, and just between Raw and this one, I like how she's getting more esoteric and weird, like not afraid to make it more abstract. And I'm really very curious to see where she goes with next. Is she going to go even more crazy with it? Or maybe is she just gonna, you know, who knows? I mean, maybe she just comes back and does like, you know, just some regular indie drama. You never know. She could probably do anything at this point, just so long as it's not a comic book movie. I'm fine with whatever she does. I was
gonna say, you know how some directors come out and they slowly grow on you, and you finally kind of see like, oh my God, this director is really amazing. And then some directors like hit you in the face right out of the gate, and you're just like, holy shit. I mean, this is like Scorsese did that. When Scorsese came out with the first three movies that he had, like the big ones that everyone caught really fast. I mean, everyone was like, what the fuck? This guy's just, you know, and people hated it and loved it at the same time. There's this kind of this very strong reaction to it. And I feel like she's on that kind of a trajectory.
I would like to be a fly on the wall and see what David Cronenberg would feel once he saw Titane. He must have been very, very proud and very amazed by how awesome this movie is, right? Because
the body horror is strong with this one.
Yes.
Strong as titanium, you might say.
Oh, very. Eric Holmes, you should be quoted for you should do a movie quote. That's a great quote. The body horror is strong. Yes, this is a body horror film. We forgot to mention that. Body horror film for Titane hits theaters on Friday, October 1st. This is one of my top 10. Wondering about how high is this for you, Bruce?
It's still kind of, I'm seeping in with it. It's on my list for sure. I don't know where it'll end up, but it's on my list
to consider. And Eric, this is, whether it's top 10 or not, it's still a very good experience for you overall.
Yeah, this is a movie that's gonna kind of like, I already like it better now than I did when I first watched it. Like, it's like the further away I get from it, the more I consider the movie and the more I actually like it. So actually that 24-hour window probably helped, because that was a couple days ago, so we had a couple days to sit on it, as opposed, because like if I was reviewing this movie like right after I got done watching it, I'd be like, I don't know what I just watched.
Did we also mention there's humor? There is humor in this too. It doesn't sound like there's any humor, but there's a scene where she walks up and goes, and I'm not going to say what's happening in the scene. She goes like, "How many of you are there?" And I was just like, holy shit.
Or just before that, where she was sitting on a guy's face.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah, very interesting movie, Titane. Again, let's do warning. Bruce, who do we warn people about seeing? Do not see this if you what?
This is very violent.
Yeah, violence is a number one. Yeah.
Okay, but all of us love Titane. Friday, October 1st. Again, like Old Henry, both of them are in theaters. Last and least is a movie called American Night. American Night. Okay, I don't even know where to start about this. I'm gonna say this. It's a sprawling Quentin Tarantino-esque homage, like a true romance. Okay, and it deals with the centerpiece of this, or maybe it's even a MacGuffin. It's the Andy Warhol painting of Marilyn Monroe is up for grabs. There are people who are trying to actually get a hold of it, and one of them is an art forger, art dealer, this upscale art guy played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. There is another person who is a mobster who has a flair for actually creating art, sort of a Jackson Pollock thing. He'll throw paint against a blank canvas and then he'll machine gun it. Just I guess Jackson Pollock with bullets. So there's the mobster played by Emile Hirsch. There is the art forger played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. There's a whole bunch of other people who populate this movie just for the benefit of trying to abscond or take this Marilyn Monroe by Warhol. There's also Jeremy Piven. He plays the stepbrother of the art dealer. He is this failed stuntman who is obsessed with Bruce Lee. There's a bunch of times where Jeremy Piven talks about be like water, like Bruce Lee. And there's also Paz Vega. Paz Vega plays a love interest of the art dealer, and she has a couple of memorable sequences in this movie as well, which we're going to get to in a second. This movie's all over the place. Eric Holmes, let's start with you because you're the first person to see American Night.
Oh yeah, Jeremy Piven was hilarious in this. The part where he goes up with the RV to pick up Emilio Estevez, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Stephen Dorff. He's like, and watch the floors, they're marble. And then of course, they do that. They drive to the boxing match, right? And Jeremy Piven's like, he's driving the RV and he's a little drunk. He accidentally hits a guy, and it's like, oh no. And then they bring him in, try to fix him, and then Dennis Leary and Everlast and I forget the other guy's name, and they're like, hey, there's the guy, and they kill him. And then Emilio Estevez and Jeremy Piven. Jeremy Piven's so good in this movie. I love him so much.
This is Eric's way of saying go check out Judgment Night as soon as you can.
Yes, Judgment. Oh, I thought this was American Night. Yeah, Judgment Night is great. I don't remember one thing about this movie, and I will let you too. This movie reminded me like of Lucky Number 11 or Boonraku, or like those movies that's like, there's two kind of people in this world: people that think they're clever, and this is not a good movie. There's probably people that like this, but this movie is just trying to be way too clever, and it just kind of comes off as really lame, and I don't hardly remember any of it.
I can't believe. Look, and this
Judgment Night is awesome though. Go check out Judgment.
There is a sequence where the art forger, art dealer, played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, he and Paz Vega, they are frolicking in his studio, and they're dripping paint all over each other, and they're on a canvas, and they're making love, and you get to see Paz Vega's breast. You don't even remember that sequence.
I will take your word for it that was in the movie. I remember none of this movie.
That is Bruce. Do you remember that? Do you remember
Anderson is often said, "In one eye, out the other." That's exactly what this movie did.
My goodness, the beautiful.
That's how checked out he was.
Bruce, did you remember the Paz Vega nude scene and the love scene and the paint and the canvas?
Sure, okay. I remembered it. I was writing some notes down as I was watching it because I was just like, okay, this is terrible.
I mentioned Eric. I mentioned you not remembering the beautiful, amazing Paz Vega, who I think is one of the bright spots of this movie. And I told Anderson how you, for some reason, forgot that scene. And Anderson actually defended you. He said, "Well, if it's a movie that I really didn't like, I'd probably forget that scene as well." And he basically was saying in no few words that probably that means the fact that that scene is really stapled in my conscious and brain. That means I might be a big perv. So, in fairness to you're forgetting that scene, maybe like Bruce said, you completely checked out on this movie. Totally understandable. Bruce, you were saying.
I'll just read a couple of little notes I had, and then I'll a couple other things. But first of all, they said the title at least 3 times in this movie. I don't know if you kept count, Greg.
What was the title of it? Judgment Night.
Yes, they said a couple times towards I know towards the end it's prominently placed. So American Night.
That's always such an awkward thing to do in a movie, and sometimes you can pull it off, but it's pretty self-conscious. I wrote confoundingly bad. I think that was pretty much the first thing I wrote. Stupefying, confusing. This should not be a confusing movie, but it is confusing. Long and convoluted. Worst bald cap in years. I don't know if you remember. The bald cap is terrible. Digital Blood, and then the Piven blindfold subplot is ridiculous. Now,
see, I don't remember Piven having a blindfold scene. I do remember him making a deal with Dennis Leary on the rooftop, and then Dennis Leary ends up like
oh, that's so funny,
pushing him off, and then of course Cuba Gooding Jr. starts shooting at him, and they all run away. I remember that part, but I don't remember the.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, this like you said before, this movie wants to be a Tarantino movie so badly.
Yeah, even Michael Madsen is in this for about several seconds, right?
Yeah, and it does all the things. This is like a perfect, I guess this would be like, we talk about a textbook example of how to write a movie really well and leanly and all that. This is exactly a textbook example of how to try to make a movie like somebody else and not understand why the other person's work is effective. Because he doesn't have the dialogue. He doesn't have the flair for dialogue. If anything, the dialogue is horrible in this. And he does all of the backtracking in time and this Rashomoning kind of thing. And it just makes the whole thing even more confusing.
More jumbled, yeah.
Yeah. And this is just long and tedious and so self-conscious. It's just painful.
You have to agree though that the train track scene where they go in there and the guy's looking at Cuba Gooding Jr.'s jacket, and he's like, I was a college graduate. And then, Dennis Leary and his buddy here, and they go and they shoot the wrong guy. But I mean, that part was pretty exciting. You guys got to agree with that.
Another Judgment Night review from Eric Holmes, as he doesn't remember much about American Night. Look, there's a couple of good things about this movie. Okay. All things being said, even though this movie to me at the most gets 1 star out of 5 stars. The aforementioned Paz Vega, I was kind of half kidding about her nude sequence with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. She plays a woman named Sarah. She's actually pretty good in this movie for whatever dialogue that is thrown her way, whatever maybe things that might be thrown her way as well. She actually feels like she's in the moment. She's trying her best. She's good. There's another character. His name is Shaky, and he is very good in this movie. He's a courier in the film, and he's played by Fortunato Surlino. You might know him as the cold-blooded mob boss in Gomorrah, that TV series Gomorrah. He's very, very good in that. In this one, he's more of an underling. And his moments where he's just awkward and trying to actually navigate in this power-hungry world, yeah, it works. I liked him as Shaky. And also, Eric was mentioning like Bunraku and all these things. The actual idea to make a hyper-real set, like a stylized comic book-y set, I understand that on the production design level. I liked that in the intent. But other than that, everything else about this movie, it runs 2 hours and 3 minutes, and it was a slog to get through. There are so many unnecessary sequences. Also, the 2 leads, Emile Hirsch and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, look, their characters are the least interesting thing about this movie. They are so uninteresting in this movie, and you spend 85 to 90% with them throughout this movie. Eric Holmes, yeah.
I hate to correct you. It wasn't Emile Hirsch. It was Emilio Estevez, and his brother was played by Stephen Dorff. And that
Very
part
good.
where he was like, "I'm fucking scared, Frank." I mean, that was a good brotherly moment, and I think you're a little too hard on this movie. And the soundtrack is fantastic. Faith No More and Booyah Tribe, Therapy and Fatal, Biohazard, Onyx. It's just.
By the way, yeah,
I think you guys are honestly being a little too hard.
The soundtrack to Judgment Night
is pretty sweet.
Is very good. And what's pretty sweet is I actually covered the press junket of Judgment Night some years ago, and I remember actually one of the tchotchkes that we got after the press junket was the aforementioned soundtrack to Judgment Night. That is a great soundtrack to Judgment Night. Judgment Night, very, very good film, directed by Stephen Hopkins. This movie, unfortunately, is not directed by Stephen Hopkins. It is written and directed by Alessio Della Val. And my goodness, yeah, 1 star for me. Bruce, do you even give this a 1 star, or is it a bomb? Is it a bomb for you? Well, it's one of the worst movies of the year. I'm going to say it right now.
Yeah, because this is not like, we talk about movies that can be so bad they're good and fun, but this is not fun. It's not fun to watch.
No, I had fun moments watching Paz Vega. I had fun moments watching Shaky, but Shaky's very in this movie, very little. I wanted them to go back to them. When you have the 2 leads and they're just so misguided, and we're trying to actually, the filmmaker is trying to curry kind of some kind of sympathy for these fallen heroes, these fallen anti-heroes and everything. No way. American Night, Not definitely. It comes out in theaters, VOD, digital on Friday, October 1st. None of us recommend this movie, even though the IMDb rating, 16 reviews, it's 8.1 out of 10 stars. I apologize for eviscerating this movie, but nothing in this movie except Hans Vega and the guy who played Shaky, Fortunato, I believe Sorlino, I believe that's his name. Those are the ones who are Fortunato Sorlino. Yeah, those are the ones who actually escape from this relatively unscathed. I can't believe Michael Madsen was in this for 2 seconds. I can't believe he just showed up. There's also a musical moment where Anastasia sings a song, and you're wondering, this song is like 2 minutes. They could have cut so many scenes in this movie. This could have been a 90-minute movie. I don't know if it would have been better, but they didn't need that extra that they did. Look, it went way overboard, and it needed a lot of work on the script. Any final thoughts regarding American Night, Eric Holmes or Bruce? Nothing.
I watch this movie at least once a year. One of my favorite Dennis Leary movies, and I love Jeremy Piven in it. I wish his character would have stayed alive longer. And the soundtrack is fantastic. I give Judgment Night a perfect 6 out of 9.
Very, very perfect 6 out of 9. Yes. Eric Holmes went the Charlie Kaufman route and went absurdist with his review of American Night, which he didn't remember, and he actually flipped it with Judgment Night. So those are 3 featured reviews for this week, the week of October 1st, 2021. Now we are on recommendations. Bruce recommends, and he's skirting the rules again. What makes Squid Game, aka the Hunger Games, aka a mishmash of so many different things? I'm sure you've actually seen the entire series. What makes it so popular and so really huge right now?
First of all, it's really good. It's really entertaining. Squid Game is out of South Korea. Like you said, it is a mix of some of those things for sure. I think what really makes this work is its unique presentation and the way it progresses. I'll just give you the basic setup. I'm not going to go into too much because this is 9 episodes, so I don't usually suggest series. I don't usually watch series, so series to catch me all the way through, it takes a little bit of something special. We'll have to see what Eric thinks. I know he started it. Basic concept is this: you start out with a really down on his luck dude. He is like the kind of the classic loser, right? He's kind of a deadbeat dad. He lives with his mom. He's probably in his 30s, 40s. He's got huge gambling debts. And this is a world where he's in such debt that Chinatown style, he gets beat down. The guy sticks like a knife or something in his nose, punches him, bloodies him, makes him sign away his bodily rights with blood thumbprint saying, if you don't pay this off in a certain time, we can go ahead and just take one of your kidneys. Like that's where this guy's at. And then as he's at that state, he meets up with a stranger.
Does he invest in cryptocurrency?
Yes, lots of it.
That's probably why he's broke to begin with.
Yeah. So he just meets this guy, and this guy kind of does this little wager thing with him on the subway station. And he, our main guy wins a little bit of money. And the stranger gives him a card and says, hey, if you want to win more money, call this number. Flash forward to he calls the number and gets picked up by a strange car, gets knocked out by, gas in the car, wakes up with 465 other people in this giant room, and they're now part of the Squid Game. And Squid Game basically is there are 6 games, and whoever survives the 6 games, you find out very quickly that you may not survive the 6 games. They didn't know that when they got in there. Whoever survives the 6 games will get to divide up all the money that's been dropped in this giant piggy bank based on all the people who have died before them. So each person's worth a certain amount of money. And this is like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So you would think, okay, that's kind of interesting, I guess. Every episode's going to be another game. But that's where this gets really interesting, because there are 3 rules. Now, help me, Eric. You've seen the beginning more recently than I did.
Yeah, don't feed them after midnight. Don't get them wet. Keep them away from water.
Folks, Eric Holmes has gone rogue on this episode, and I'm loving it for some reason. I have a perverse need for this going rogue thing. I love it. He should do it more. That's very, very cool. Anyways,
so the 3 rules, I think, are you have to you have to participate in the games. I think that's how it is. You can't or if everyone votes if a majority of votes to end the games, you can end the games. And I forget what the other one was.
If you fail, you get eliminated.
Oh, you get eliminated.
Yeah.
Which they find out very quickly means you get killed. So And the game, and I guess I would say the art direction of this is incredibly interesting and cool, colorful and strange. And what makes this really good is as it goes, it doesn't progress in a way you expect. It goes into way more convoluted things than you think are going to happen. Like it goes into the guards, it goes into people who might have infiltrated this situation. You start to meet all the different characters, and the games don't play out in such a linear fashion. And on top of that, it's got some very strange homages it throws in there that tells you this is coming from a pretty odd perspective. And you see things like Chinatown. Dr. Phibes has an homage in here. Sallow has an homage in here. Just those alone should tell you, like, whoa.
I don't want to even think what I can't even think what the homage to Sallow 120 Days of Sodom is. I can't even think about that.
The PlayStation game controller.
It does. It's true. So I think that if you like kind of these prestige bingeable programs, give this, I would say, and I think Eric said he was in the second episode, I would give it 3 episodes, because the second episode, it drops down a little bit, but you're meeting all the characters you're going to know for the rest of the story. And then from then on, it just is off to the races again.
Eric, did this hook you right from the get-go? Bruce was saying it takes 3 episodes. Are you hooked already?
I'm on the second episode, and my thought is I'm liking it so far. But if it doesn't start doing something other than playing the game, people dying, and then playing another game, like if it doesn't go beyond that, I'll probably bail. But from what Bruce is saying, it doesn't sound like it's going to do that. Probably go somewhere unexpected. I don't know what that would be at the moment, but I mean, at the moment, I'm digging it. So I'll make it then. I do have one question for you, Bruce. Does this end, or does it end in a cliffhanger that they'll do another season?
It's one of those things where if it doesn't ever get another season, it ends enough that you know what's going on. This is not a lost situation, but it does give you an opening that if they want to continue the story in a certain way, which I'm not going to say what it is, it could do that, but it definitely ends. And what is really interesting about this is, as far as what you're talking about, Eric, I'll see what you think when you get there. I think it does alter it enough, but it does, of course, keep giving you the games, because that's the main, meat and potatoes of that movie. But what's great is, because anything like this, you're going to have your main characters. You're going to like, well, they're not going to die because you've got 100 other characters that can die in these games. And for a while, that's the case somewhat. But there's points where, as it goes and escalates, some of the characters are going to die. And that's where you're just like, oh my God, now wait, how's this going to happen? So it definitely, and it does do more than just Hunger Games. It gets into some interesting philosophical stuff. It's pretty good.
Can we say Battle Royale instead?
Yeah, it's got Battle Royale too, for sure.
No, I just mean, instead of it's copying Hunger Games, could we just say it's copying Battle Royale?
We can't.
We can't say that. Okay, so that is Squid Game. Currently, it's available on Netflix. I'm sure if you're listening to this, I'm sure 9.5 out of 10 of you have actually started watching Squid Game. It is probably one of the most popular shows right now. Yes, Bruce.
Last thing, they give them this little card that has a phone number on the back, which is a weird phone number for us, right? It wouldn't work in America, but apparently that was a real phone number in South Korea. And I looked it up, and people were calling that number by the thousands and thousands to join the Squid Game. And some poor lady who ran her own business was inundated by thousands of calls from that number.
Is so funny that I smell a lawsuit with Squid Game. Obviously, they're making enough money from this to actually cover the expenses.
According to Squid Games, all you need to do is sign a release, and you can, if you can kill someone, if they sign it, I'm sure you could call someone as well.
Okay, so that's Squid Game on Netflix. That is Bruce's weekly recommendation. Now we're going to get to Eric Holmes's weekly recommendation. Eric, what do you have for us?
Yes, I am pulling the name up because I keep forgetting it, and it is a Netflix documentary, I guess you would call it. It's called Attack of the Hollywood Clichés. It's hosted by Rob Lowe, who is quite charming, quite funny.
Nice guy.
I don't know about you guys, but
I've interviewed him. Nice guy. Very good.
Yeah,
very good guy.
I love Rob Lowe.
Come on, Rob Lowe and Bad Influence. Come on.
And Tommy Boy.
Yeah,
he's awesome. And in this, they kind of go through a bunch of Hollywood cliches and that's pretty much it. It doesn't go much deeper than that. It's that the cop that plays by his own rules, and then they get a bunch of talking heads to go, yep, there are movies where the cops play by their own rules. All right, now the guy that he's got his last day on the job and he's gonna die. And then they talk to other talking heads that are like, yep, there are movies where people say that there's their last day on the job and then they're gonna die. Oh, and then we got the magical I don't know if I can say that word. Magical black guy. There's a word for it. I'm not gonna say it out loud because I don't want you in trouble for this. And then they talk to the people they're interviewing and go, yep, there are movies where this happens. It's kind of fun. I wish they would have got a little deeper into it. Like, talk about the cliches, yes, but then here's where the cliche started, and here's where it's at. Here's why it's annoying. And maybe here's some ways that you can turn the cliches around and make them fun. Here's examples of movies where they did turn the cliches on their head. They do a little bit of that, but not quite enough. This just seemed kind of like low hanging fruit, which is another cliche, by the way.
But it's low hanging fruit, but it was entertaining for you to watch. That's why you're recommending it.
Yeah, it was. It's about an hour long, and it was just kind of like so there was that the movie about movie posters,
right?
The John Campea documentary I talked about. I can't remember the name, but so that was kind of base level, but they went a little deeper into stuff that I didn't realize. This is basically just a list of cliches, and then people saying, yep, those cliches exist. Are on to the next cliche.
You are not selling this movie. This special. The special also features Andrew Garfield, Richard E. Grant, who I recently interviewed, Andy McDowell, Robert Englund, and Florence Pugh. Did you like having these talking heads in the movie, or do you wish there were more movie cinema geeks like us?
Like, for instance, they have John August in there, which is how I heard of this, because I listened to the Script Notes podcast.
Right.
And John August is a really good writer to begin with, and he said that he was interviewed for this, which is the whole reason I watched it to begin with. And you figure that, like, a movie or a documentary about movie cliches, and you're talking to some screenwriters. Well, first of all, hearing Hollywood people complain about movie cliches is kind of stupid because they're the ones making them. That'd be like if I complained about what I say on this podcast. I'm the one saying it. I have no moral authority to talk shit on it. I can agree when you talk shit on it, but it's just kind of a missed opportunity. And now that I'm thinking of it, I don't even know why it brought it up. It was just it was a way to kill an hour, and I killed an hour, and it was better than American
Night. Is that is the only, folks? This is the only this is Eric's recommendation. Go see Attack of the Hollywood Clichés because Rob Lowe is cool, which I agree with, and it's better than American Night. Which
I would say because there's some people that like to get into that mode where you get in kind of hater mode, like, yeah, fuck that, or fuck that movie, or screw that, or whatever. I think if you get into kind of hater mode, you'd probably something out of Attack of the Hollywood Clichés.
Okay.
I don't usually go down that road. I'd much rather review Judgment Night.
This is actually in a weird way a Judgment Night special with you and Stephen Dorff appreciation podcast, which I do appreciate. Stephen Dorff.
Yeah, if you want to get into that Schadenfreude kind of hater mode, then I would, it's an hour, check it out. Otherwise, if you think it's going to go much deeper than that, it doesn't.
Okay. Attack of the Hollywood Clichés. I can't believe Eric actually used a big word, that Schadenfreude. Bruce, how do you pronounce it? Schadenfreude?
Shot and fried.
Schadenfreude.
Right.
Oh, Schadenfreude. Very good use of that word, Eric Holmes. I now have to look it up on Google. I'll look up the definition. Now, speaking of Schadenfreude. Very good with the 6-shooter. All right.
Y'all better get that Schadenfreude off my property. Otherwise, I'm going to Schadenfreude you.
Very cool. And you're actually going to make me want to see Judgment Night sooner than later. Oh, also, Eric, I'm going to take you to task. It's been at least a couple of months since you have abandoned. When Daniel Day-Lewis says, what is it? I've abandoned my boy. I think you've abandoned Kirk Douglas. You haven't watched a Kirk Douglas movie in over a couple of months. What happened? Where's the love? Eric Holmes.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Why? What happened?
Oh, there's something coming.
Okay.
I was gonna watch it this week, but I didn't have time. But
Well, I'm going to throw the blame on me because I made Eric Holmes watch American Night. Do you ever think of the time you wasted watching American Night and forgetting about that movie? That 2 hour and 3 minute space could have been filled up by an awesome Kirk Douglas movie.
no, because my fingernails were getting really long, and I got my fingernail clippers right here. So it wasn't a complete loss. I did get something. I did get something done during that time.
Did he even watch it? I wonder if he even watched it.
He watched it. I remember he watched it. He told me he watched it on the first night. He jumped on it the first night.
The movie was playing in front of me.
The movie was playing. Very good answer. Very good answer, Eric Holmes. Look, don't ever accuse Eric Holmes of anything, Bruce Purkey. He loves courtroom dramas. He's gonna slither out of it.
I was very much on the edge of my seat throughout Judgment Night, and I've seen that movie like over 100 times.
Well, I will say this. Okay, enough of American Night. Let's get to some time. Did you guys know I'm part Thai? I'm part Thai and part Filipino. I'm surprised I haven't seen Tropical Malady. I'm surprised. I love by the way, Thai food's best. Okay, before we get to that, this is our musical segue. Eric, who does our musical segue?
That would be Pete Abeta from Middle Class Film Class.
Really? Very cool. Very, very good. I call him the chairman of the board. Last week, I'm going to call him the mix master. What does he do every week for us?
Pete?
Yeah. What does he do?
He drops that beat.
Who's in the box? Oh, what's in the box? You lie! No! What's in the fucking box?
All right. Thank you again, Pete Abeta from Middle Class Film Class. Wonderful podcast. Thank you for your contribution, your weekly contribution to our music. Look, Bruce, go. I'm going to say this. Both Bruce and Eric go above and beyond the Call of Duty. They ultimately watch more movies than I do every week. Bruce, for some reason, has tethered himself to what's in the box, meaning he has to, no matter, come rain or come shine. I love that song. Come rain or come shine. He has to watch an extra movie more than me or Eric. A lot of times, maybe 9 out of 10 times, Eric will join. This one, though, I don't know if Eric joined because Tropical Malady, you had to basically Jimmy Hoffa it and find it in in certain circles. Was it worth? Tell us about Tropical Malady, and I want to know if was it worth all that searching with respect to Jeff Bassan.
So yeah, I think Jeff Bassan did it because he just wanted me to pronounce the director's name. So here we go. Here we go. It's Apichatpong Weerasethakul. I'm sure that's exactly right. Tropical Malady. This is one of those movies. As I was watching it, I was thinking, I would bet you 99% that I would get a ton more out of this if I had more connection to the culture, because half of this movie looks like to be based on a folktale, which I know nothing of. So, but I'll give you the basic concept. So this is actually strangely almost a Tropical Malady. It's almost an anthology, a 2-part anthology. So there's essentially 2 films in one here. The first story, the first half, is just this kind of really gentle, quiet story about these 2 men. One's an ex-military guy, coming back. He's kind of back home and he doesn't have a job or anything. So he's just he has a lot of time. And this friend that he's kind of known from before, and they slowly build up a romance. I was kind of surprised by that because at first it just seemed like this it actually seemed like to be 2 buddies and they were going to find women, or he's going to get into trouble, or something was going to happen, because there's a lot of the shots of them in the city and him looking for a job. And then all of a sudden this romance builds between them. I don't know how taboo that is. I don't know if 2004 or even now, if that is shown much in Thai film, but it seemed pretty interesting. The biggest problem I have overall with this movie, and this part is that it's definitely very deliberately paced. To me, I would tighten it up. I mean, to my sensibilities, it's a lot of extended shots of the countryside and the city and so on and so forth, when I wanted to just get with the narrative. So that kind of was a little bit of a negative for me. Now, part 2 is a little more interesting for me, in that part 2 is all about this legend of almost like a werewolf legend, but it's a person who had been either possessed, I didn't quite understand, but can turn into a tiger, basically. And it's the single soldier, and he's kind of out in the woods. Really evocative too. It's almost like the footage you get in, I don't know, like Apocalypse Now or something, where they're really down in the forest, the rainforest, and it's just, you can just hear and feel, what the the atmosphere is there, just thick, humid, and he's trying to hunt down this creature, and it gets more and more kind of fantastical as it goes, and you don't know if he's hallucinating or what's happening, but he's, the monkey at one point is like looking at him, and he's hearing what the monkey is telling him, and so it very much almost is like a fairy tale or folk tale. Once again, it probably would have been much richer to me if I knew it a little bit better. So I would say this is a light recommend for me. It doesn't quite connect to me, but I'm glad I saw it.
There are some people, I was reading some of these IMDb reviews, and some of them said really absolutely boring and self-indulgent. There's other people who said, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my life. For those people who say this is the best film I've ever seen in my life, this movie will really appeal to people who, what, Bruce? I mean, can you see why the people?
Yeah, I think
Jeff loved it. I mean, I don't know.
Yes, I think if you really like almost meditative, almost and like we talked about with Gunda, right? So the way you have to almost be in that mood for a really meditative, like just an immersion in a world, but not necessarily a narratively rich movie. So in other words, like I talked about with the first story with the two men, it isn't like there's a strong story. It's a lot of them just in their world, and it's like the world they live in. And if you love seeing that kind of stuff, almost cinema verite, almost pseudo documentary style, then people who really appreciate that, like kind of falling into a world they don't know, would probably love this.
Okay, so that is Tropical Malady. It is not streaming anywhere. No DVD or Blu-ray. You have to go through this Thai black market that Bruce underwent with squished up translations. And I don't know, Jeff Basson, what a pick from you. One of these days, maybe you and I, Eric, will go see Tropical Malady when it's out on streaming. We'll find it.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I love that about this though, because whether it connects with you totally or not, like I would never ever have encountered this movie probably in my whole life. So that's what I love about this kind of thing. And every so often you get one of those and it becomes your new favorite movie, So
I mean, from what you're describing though, it sounds like kind of like almost a lost movie anyway.
Yeah.
Just that you had to dig so far, and you didn't even find the movie. You found you found the movie, but you found like the fucking most bullshit version of the movie that you could.
From what I could see, it looks like a Thai person who loved it found a way to get it out there so other people could see it. Like, and all the comments or stuff like that. Oh, finally I can watch this movie, that kind of stuff, So
funny.
I mean, think about how much international cinema is just lost to us. Like we just don't even know.
Yeah.
I think at that point, if you have a decent version of it, you just put it out there, put it on the pirate sites and say, that's the only way you can get it. So fuck it. I mean, clearly no one gives a shit at least the people that own it don't seem to give a shit. So
yeah. Random question. Have both of you tried Thai food? Are you fans of Thai food ever? Oh,
yes,
okay.
I love anything with rice noodles and beef.
Okay. Very cool.
The curries. I like the curries a lot. Red or yellow.
Yeah,
really good.
Do they have some good Thai restaurants around your parts, Bruce?
Terrible. There's not here. When I lived in Seattle,
of course, yes.
Good Thai, good Korean, good
fish, good everything, right? Yeah. Good everything. No, this is not a culinary staple in your neck of the woods. No.
Unfortunately, I'm really sad about that.
How much? Sorry to depress you, Bruce. Sorry to depress you, Eric. How about in your neck of the woods? Are there some good Thai restaurants, or
Yeah, there's a place called Thai Lily. It's actually really close to Entertainment, actually, and because I don't eat a lot of Thai food, so I wouldn't know what to compare it to, but I like it.
Very cool.
Everything I try there is really good.
Yeah, I haven't been to a Thai restaurant since COVID, so I do miss eating Thai food. It's a big part of my culture.
The iced coffees, they have iced coffees that are really good. Oh my god, they're so good.
I'll go to Thai Lily, order you something, and then just send it through the mail.
Yeah, very good.
I'm sure it'll be fine by the time it gets to you.
Yeah, I'll have that with some Asian beer, some Singha beer as well. So down the we love all that.
You're killing me.
You want to get a shoe silly sarsaparilla to go with that.
Okay, so that is our that is it. That is it for this episode. We covered a lot. I always forget. I always forget.
Shake the box.
What's in the box?
We need to save the Yo Pete drop that beat for when he actually pulls it out of the box.
That way you can't forget it.
Yeah. What's in the bleeping box, Bruce?
Hey Bruce, what's in that? What's in that box, Bruce? You got a pig in there.
Well, this is a new edition. This is one I
Okay,
just
very good.
added from the last week by Julianne J. Howard. Suggested The Last Supper from 1995, directed
Ooh.
by Stacy Title.
Stacey Tuttle. Interesting. I believe that movie might star, if I recall, maybe Cameron Diaz. I
Yes,
could,
Cameron
really?
Diaz is in it. I did
And
see it
what-
way back then, but I only remember the basic concept of it, which I won't say if Eric doesn't know when he wants to see it.
The Last Supper. Well,
Mhm.
what year did you say it came out?
95.
95. And
Are
yes,
you
but
sure that won't be the last one? Pretty sure. Though.
it won't be The Last Supper. Look, but again, the director is Stacy Title. Stacy, what's Stacy? What is it? Who's the director for The
I
Last
thought it
Supper?
was Stacy Title, but I might have written it down wrong. It's
Okay, no,
possible.
no, you're probably right. But yeah, it's a very interesting selection from Julian J. Howard. Julian, thank you so much for supporting us here on the Find Your Film podcast, as well as the Cinematics podcast. I was gonna really tie in because Anderson and I had, Anderson and I, by the way, Eric Holmes, you mentioned basically a lot of your energy for this movie was Old Henry Titane, but basically it's Judgment Night. Go listen to our latest Cinematics episode, which I'm sure as we speak, Anderson is uploading because he has a very interesting Stephen Dorff story. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
And it has to do with a hot tub. You're gonna like that. Hot tub in Hawaii. A little teaser with Stephen Dorff. Okay.
Stephen Dorff.
Little Stephen Dorff.
Before we go, underrated Stephen Dorff movies. Let's go now. Eric, don't say Judgment Night. You can't say it. I'm gonna start first. I'm gonna start
I
first.
haven't seen it in a long time, but SW might be one.
Yes, SFW.
It's really good at Blade, and that movie wasn't great, but fucking in Public Enemies, the Michael Mann movie.
Public Enemies. Yeah, he was good in that. He was
There
good in
you
that.
go.
He was,
We'll go with that one.
okay, my choices are City of Industry, a movie directed by John Irvin. It's a noir film with, I believe, Timothy Hutton. Very, very good movie. Not many people have seen that. It's Harvey Keitel. Basically, Eric Holmes, you haven't seen City of Industry, check it down. Here's my pitch to you. Harvey Keitel versus Stephen Dorff, mano y mano.
Yep.
I think I sold. Did you see City of Industry? Have you seen that?
No, Harvey Keitel's got a big wanger, so I'm wondering if he's going to use that to beat Stephen Dorff.
Beat Stephen Dorff literally with the wanger. How about you, Bruce? Stephen Dorff.
I'm going to say preemptively Old Henry. I have a feeling it's going to be underseen, and it should not.
Yeah, I loved him.
That's actually I hate that you're right about that, or that you'll probably be right about that.
Lastly, Stephen Dorff, if you know, other than the vape stuff that he used to do, those blue cigarettes he used to do in the commercials. Another thing I'd recommend is obviously his work in the season 3 of True Detective. And finally, there's this movie that hardly anyone has seen where he played Stu Sutcliffe in a movie called Backbeat. Yes.
That is a good one.
Yeah,
Backbeat's good.
He's very good. Very good music. Almost as good music as Judgment Night. Actually, my big recommendation this week, along with our featured movies, if you can, if Spotify or Apple Music, forget that. Go get the hard physical copies of the Judgment Night and the Backbeat CD soundtracks if you can get it, if you still love physical media. Finally, Eric Holmes, any thoughts before we leave? I think I just cut this, folks. Eric just went out with a musical interlude a la Leos Carax, and I do have to, unfortunately, I am the censor police. We are finally closing out.
That wasn't a song. Those were just words that I said out loud.
You just said out loud. Okay, as he does with a devilish smile. Okay, finally, Bruce, lead us out.
Shot and fried.
Okay, guys, we will see you next week on this here Find Your Film podcast.